Hi everyone, thanks very much for watching. In today's video, we're going to go over how to create a corporate or personal estate transfer case inside of Life Design Analysis. To start, we're going to go to the Add New Case option, and we're either going to create a client on the spot or work with an existing client file in our LD account. For today's example, I'm going to use my Steve sample client and click Continue to Proceed. Once on the design case page, my first step is to add in the plan that I would like to use for presenting this concept. Generally speaking, we're looking at either overfunding a universal life or bringing in a par whole life plan. I'm going to use par whole life for today's example. I have one through Canada Life I've pre-designed, so I'm going to select Canada Life from the drop-down menu, indicating to LDA that I'm going to bring in a spreadsheet for a Canada Life whole life product. And now the system's going to prompt me to go retrieve that data from the illustration software. I'm going to transition screens, go into my illustration software here for Canada Life. And here I've designed my client to be the same as my example, 40-year-old male non-smoker, using paid up additions, $50,000 put annually into this policy. And here we're using an Estate Achiever Plus 20 pay, so $1 million sum of premiums. I haven't added in any additional benefits, ADO, but feel free to construct this however you'd like. Once I'm done, I'm going to go to View Data, export this spreadsheet into Microsoft Excel, and that will allow me to load it into Life Design Analysis by either saving it as a document and importing that file, or by simply copying all the data, including the headers as I'm doing here, and pasting it into my LDA case. So I'll click Paste Spreadsheet Data, right click and paste all the data in this text box. Then I'll select Upload, and in just a few seconds, all that data will be ready inside of the LDA program. Look for this confirmation up at the top, as well as the import and paste options to no longer be there. Now that our main plan is inside the design case page, I can choose to add in other options to compare for this scenario, whether it's universal life or whole life. Or I can leave it on its own and just present this one product. My suggestion would be to use the edit plan icon to change the name to the specifications of that plan you're looking to present. The next two steps I would take are by first going in our case controls and finding the report concepts option. What this will do is it will allow us to either indicate if we're working with a corporate estate or personal estate transfer case. And by selecting it, it will choose the appropriate page options to present for this strategy. But what I'll also find is that under my report notes, I have a write-up on the corporate estate transfer since that's what I selected. And just scrolling down past the assumptions, which we'll circle back to, we can see that the pages are now catered to that strategy. So that's step one. The next step is to work under the corporate and personal estate transfer assumptions to put in the specifications for our assumptions that we're using in this scenario. I'm going to indicate first whether it's personal or corporate. Now notice when I do that my tax rates will change to apply to the corporate tax maximums for the province that I'm working in. So myself, I'm located in Ontario. That's set up as the default here. But what I could also do is choose the province if I'm working with somebody that's, say, located outside of Ontario, or I could enter in a specific number if necessary. What I'll also see is that my RDTOH rates are entered in automatically. So from here, once I've done that and I've confirmed my tax rates are appropriate, I can either choose an investment mix or I can enter them in myself. So let's say I want to choose a balanced fund. Notice that LDA will set the investment mix, or I can put no preset and fill it in as I choose. Let's say it's a 100% interest investment mix. And maybe I'm saying that I'm investing with GICs and getting a 2% return, but you can set that up as you wish. Now that our assumptions are in place, we've selected the appropriate page options we want to use through that report concepts drop-down menu, and we have our plans brought into the case. We can indicate that we want to generate the report just at the top of the screen, and that will put everything together. So here's the final report. We'll notice our brand settings are a part of the case, just like every other LDA report that we generate. Here's our report notes specifically on that concept for a corporate estate transfer. If we are working on a personal estate transfer, that will also come across. Here's our insurance product we're working with. So It's a 20 pay, $50,000 per year for 20 years, so $1 million sum of premium. And then here's our assumptions that we put in place. 100% interest investment mix, 2% growth rate. Here's our tax rate as well. So we have that presented to the client. And then before we get into the numbers, we will show them a graphic explaining the difference between the traditional approach of taking the premium and putting it into an alternate investment and how much taxation will occur versus taking that money and putting it into a life insurance policy, how there's more tax protection. We will then summarize that information, starting with this page right here, comparing the taxable investment on the left versus the life insurance on the right. So let's start on the left-hand side with the taxable investment. The green will show us our pre-tax value to the estate, whereas on the same graph just below that, the red represents what's lost due to tax, and the blue presents what the net estate value would be by taking that same $50,000 per year for 20 years and putting it into an alternate investment. Whereas on the right-hand side, we're looking at the insurance benefit in the green. So we can see it's $4.8 million, rounding up about 4.9. But we can also see that does equal our net estate value. One thing you'll notice down below is that there's some additional options that are grayed out, which we can toggle in. So the first one I've selected is the total insurance benefit at a reduced scale. So this is using the current dividend minus 1. But we can also see how that applies to the net estate value. So if this policy performed less 1% to the current dividend projections, what that amounts to, and we can see that equals 3.4 million compared to the 4.8, which it's projected. Following this page, the next graphic will show what the potential rate of return is required to equal the net estate value of the life insurance policy. So we can see how that breaks down for each of the different tax vehicles, investment vehicles. And we can also bring that in for the reduced dividend, as you can see here, just by toggling that. If you don't want to use a rate of return, you'd rather use a dollar value, we also offer a potential capital required graphic that could be brought in its place or to complement this page. Then we'll get into this table, which breaks down all the math involved on how this is calculated. Notice that we are showing it in increments of every 5 years, but you can expand it by using the plus icons. Our target age that we set, so age 85, and just to highlight, that's been used on the past pages here, especially on this one. Notice how we do label that it is using our target age of age 85. So that is going to be highlighted on this table as well. This is great when working with corporate accountants or anybody else involved in those conversations. But really the main highlight is showing what the net estate benefit is in comparison to the insurance and the advantage from a dollar and percentage standpoint. When we bring in an alternate investment comparison like this, we can also show the investment versus the cash value and the death benefit of the insurance policy. So the green is looking at the taxable investment net benefit, whereas the dark blue or the navy is presenting the total cash value. The light blue is presenting the total insurance benefit. Keep in mind, this is at the current dividend of the carrier. So if you want to use a reduced example, you can just toggle those in and we can see those values alongside that net benefit. This graphic also has the ability to be presented in a table form if that's your preference. And finally, the last page summarizes the premium or investment amount, the net estate value of both options, but we also factor in the internal rate of return at death from the investment versus the insurance policy. So that summarizes what a corporate estate transfer report looks like. This also applies to a personal estate transfer just by following the same steps. But going back to my design case page, the main difference is we're going to then choose the report concept called personal estate transfer. And when you're designing that strategy, make sure to use the personal drop-down option right at the top. Thank you very much for taking the time to view this video. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to use the live chat built into LDA to speak with any of our customer success representatives.